The first thing that we are going to see is history of England. And anything starts with the understanding of the title first. So the program BA English Literature means English literature is literary reading literary works in English. And when we read a literary work, generally it is an expression of a human, of a personality, of his thoughts, his happiness, longing, aspiration. So generally, any literary work expresses one's emotions, for which it is very necessary to understand the people first on which the work has been written and also about the people who have written it. So it is very essential before going into a literary work to know about the society, the people who speak this language, and what kind of life they were leading, what kind of political scenario they were into. So, all these details are very important to go into any literary work. So, that is why we have social history of England and history of English literature in the first years, in which we will be studying about the English people who are the in England who are the native speakers of English. And from the beginning, we will be studying about their social life, their political scenario, about their religion in this subject, so that it gives you a background, it gives you a foundation for whatever you're going to study for the rest of the years. And after that, we will be also studying history of English literature. Social history of England talks about their social life, talks about their monarchy, their kings and queens, what kind of life they had, what kind of life they gave to their citizens, how religion was a very important part in English life. So all these details will help you for a better understanding of all the literary works that has been written in English. And after this, we will be moving into history of English literature, in which we will be studying about the authors and their biographies, their background, in which age they were living, and how they were reflecting the life of his times and his people. And right from the age of Chaucer, from the 15th century, we will be studying various authors, their contributions to the literary world, through the literary works, how they contributed to the society, politics, to people. All these details we will be knowing. And studying all these things will give you a foundation, will give you a background to move into further subjects. And parallelly, we will also do British literature 1 and 2, where you will be having the works of the author of different ages. And when you read these writings of author, the one thing that you should never forget is whatever you study in social history of England, because those are the background material for what we study in British literature. And when we do British literature with a background knowledge of all the people who are described in this work, it will give you a clarity, and it will become very simple for you to understand. And that is why these two subjects are the most important one. And history of English literature is naturally a very vast subject, because it covers a period of from 15th century to contemporary literature, and which is also very important thing for you to know as a literary student. And when you study history of English literature, it is very necessary that you read all the general features, the general common things about each age, how it changes over the time, how the people were changing in their trends, in their tradition, how they were gradually becoming modern, scientific, and change of ideas in their mind, change of lifestyle, and their approaches to religion, lifestyle. All these things you will come to know from these two subjects, and that is why it is most important things that a literature student should be acquainted with. And after studying these, in history of English literature, you have various periods like starting from Chaucer's age, and then you move on to Shakespeare's period. Shakespeare, you all would have known, even non literature people will be very much aware of Shakespeare. And then you move on to Milton, and then you come to Restoration period, uh, and then you move on to Victorian period. When you study all these topics, and when you study works from these authors, you should always keep in mind what you study about the society in social history of England, which is very important. And when you say Chaucer, Chaucer is considered to be the father of modern English poetry. He is the one who started writing in vernacular English for the first time. And it was the beginning of modernism. People and the writers and the entire English society was gradually deviating from its medieval roots, and it was moving towards modern thoughts, ideology, lifestyle, and everything, which is very well reflected in uh, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And Canterbury Tales is considered to be a archetypal work which you can even today refer to. Even today, you can keep it as a model for any kind of measurements. And then this Canterbury Tales is a collection of stories. It's a collection of 24 stories, and each story will give you a new character, introduced to his life, his personal as well as official life. And generally, it is considered to be a very strong social satire at that time, because Chaucer reflected what was happening in the society at that time. Especially, he very daringly spoke about the corruption that was happening in churches in England. So this became a very popular work, and even today we read it with the same kind of enthusiasm. And we have lot of many contemporaries also. And after this, we move on to the Shakespeare's age. And before studying Shakespeare, we also have writers Viat and Surrey, who brought in sonnets to English from Greek and Latin. Sonnet is a very fashionable form of poem which is written in 14 lines. And these people in Shakespearean age popularized this form of writing poetry in English, which became a very famous thing among readers. And Shakespearean age is also called Elizabethan age, which you would have heard in your social history. Whatever you study till your third year, you always have to go back to social history, and you will find related terms from this only, because that is the basic for whatever we are going to study. And in the Shakespearean age is also called Elizabethan era, and it is also called the Renaissance period. Renaissance in Tamil, it is called Marumalarchi. And then Renaissance period is also called the age of singing birds. And Queen Elizabeth, unlike
அதான்
other
கேக்குறதும் கேக்கும். இத கட் பண்ணிட்டு கூட
monarchs,
நம்ம அதை
is
கேட்டுக்கலாம்.
supposed to be the
இது
very
அவனுக்கு அது
enthusiastic,
கேட்கும், எனக்கு இது கேக்குமா? அதுதான் கேக்குது.
very enthusiastic queen, who encouraged innovative things in writing and science. This is the time when marine exploration became very popular and very profitable for European countries, and this is the beginning of colonialism by the great empire of the world. And then while reading Shakespeare, you will also come to know about drama, a very important genre in English literature. And you will also you would have already studied the history of drama in social history, which started as a religious thing, and how the theater gradually moved to the commonplace to accommodate more number of people, and how it transformed itself into a performing art and a thing of entertainment with the passage of time. And along with Shakespeare, we have many more writers like Marlowe, Spencer, Sidney, who were all great representative of the age, who brought this name to this age as the most prosperous period in the field of English literature. And after reading Shakespeare's age, we study about Milton's period, a clear opposite of the previous age. Shakespeare's in Elizabethan era or Shakespeare age, people were very free and they had a very happy life, easygoing life. Whereas in Milton's period, it was completely different. The English society became a very strict Puritanic society. All these details are also there in social history. So when you read Milton's work, you should remember all these details. What happened when English people forced to follow Puritanism, and how was the government functioning at the time? Who was the king or the queen? All these things are very important as you go on studying different ages. And Milton's very famous work is Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. Uh, and after this, we move on to the period of Restoration. And as I said, Shakespearean time is called the age of drama. And then after Milton's poetry, again you come off to the Restoration period, where it is also called an age of criticism, age of prose. This is the time where journals became very popular. Because of journals, because of prose, critical views also started increasing among the public as well as the intellects. And writers like Dryden, Swift, Pope, we have lot of writers in this period who were highly satirical about the English society, especially the upper middle class and the aristocrat people, which are very much reflected in their prose as well as in their drama. So if you have a clear idea about all these ages, you can understand it, and you should always remember that it is a continuous reaction of people which was reflected in the works of these authors. And then after Restoration period, we have the Romantic period. When we say romantic in literature, it is something to do with nature, something to do some seeing divinity in nature, admiring nature. And there were so many poets in this period, and we also had pre-romantics who emerged in the period of Restoration itself. Burns, Browning, who started this new kind of writing of aesthetics, which was later developed by Wordsworth, Keats, Shelley. And that's how this period was named as Romantic period. And language of the literary works also started changing with all these ages, with all these writers, where the language was becoming more vernacular, more easy even for a common reader to read. It is not only meant for the intellectuals, it is meant for even the common man. And after the Romantic period, we have the Victorian period, where the society was highly divided in terms of gender, in terms of class. And this is the time where we had the effects of French Revolution also in England. We had Industrial Revolution very fastly coming up, and we have this colonial expansion vastly spread all through the nations. So by this time, England was considered to be the most powerful country in the world, and she was ruling almost all the nations in the planet. And after the Victorian period, even though people had economic advancement, even though people had lot of, they were economically powerful, especially the educated middle class people, but still the condition of the working class people was still the same. They were kept in the same manner as they were, and the feudal system was also strictly followed even in the Victorian period. Even after so many ages, the feudal system was very solid in English society, which became a very uh, discussed thing among the writers. We had lot of novels. This is the time when novel was coming up, was emerging. As prose came in, novel was gradually developing because novel is only a long prose which contains a series of action telling you a story. So novel was also becoming parallelly popular, and novel was very easy. It was user friendly, reader friendly, so people found it easy to uh, approach it rather than drama. Poetry, you need to be really a well educated person, and for drama, it is a performing art. You have to go and watch the play, whereas novel does not require all these things and it can be read at any time, at any context, in any places. So, novel, the art of the genre of novel was widely spreading in England, and it was also a fashion among the upper middle class women, upper middle class people to read novels, and we have lot of writers from this period also, many novelists. uh, we have lot of prose writers. I wanted to show you this uh, poetry right from the beginning, from Chaucer, uh, then we have Milton, Shakespeare, then we have W.B.H. Spencer. All these people were great contributors to English poetry. And then after this, we have writings, dramas by eminent playwrights like Shakespeare, since T.S. Eliot, still Samuel Beckett. So we have lot of writers continuously contributing to the growth of English literature all around the world, and we have prose writers like Bacon's essays are the archetypal works which are still have a great value among the intellects and the common readers. uh, Essays of Lamb, Addison and Steele, writings of John Ruskin, and we also have a very important figure, Virginia Woolf, who brought in a new trend in English writing, who was a great feminist, who brought in new ideologies into English literary works. And this is the time when novel was also becoming popular, and Jane Austen is one of the very important writers from Victorian period. Along with Jane Austen, we have so many other women writers from the same age. Jane Austen is one of the very important famous writers who has written Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibilities. Sense and Sensibilities was also taken into a Tamil movie also. Uh, Kandu Kondain, Kandu Kondain, I think. Like this, there are so many other novels made into movies, and novels of Dickens. Dickens' novels were highly concerned about the working class people, and he completely satirical about what was happening in the Victorian society in the name of uh, culture and tradition. And parallelly, there was a group growing up, leaving away, disbanding themselves from this kind of traditional kind of life and slowly entering into modernism. And people like James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, they all introduced new techniques in novel writing. And in as novel became very famous, it was a tool for the modern man to express himself, to introduce new ideologies into the society. And in contemporary literature, we have novelists like Ian McEwan, Martin Amis, Zadie Smith, Margaret Rabel. There are only very few writers that I have mentioned, but there are countless number of contributors to contemporary English literature because it has become a world language today. It does not belong only to England. And apart from this, this is what we study under the major genres of literature: poetry, drama, prose, fiction. And while we are reading it, it is very important to uh, be aware of literary terms and forms. And when we say poetry, as a literature student, your approach is should be different. In poetry, we have different types of writing poems like lyric, ballad, so many other things, which has its own specific aspects, which is very necessary as a literature student to know about. And in drama also, we have different kinds of drama, uh, melodrama, and in prose, we have different prose formats. In fiction also, we have lot of types of fictions. Picaret's novel, we have detective fiction, we have science fiction, we have apocalyptic writing, utopian writings in fiction. We have lot of different types of writings in these genres. As a literature student, as a person of literature, it is not just to stop with to see a literary work just as a poetry or a drama. It is very important to go into it and look into its technical aspects also. So, with all these background, when you read a literary work, your perception completely changes about the society, about the political scenario, about everything, about people. So, your approach to life itself transforms, nurturing you to be a better person, to see your fellow men as a better human being, as an equal human being. So, all these qualities also you will develop as you become literature students day by day. And apart from this, we also have gender studies. When we say gender studies, it means to say gender equality, treatment of women in the society, and feminism. By the end of 19th century, we would have seen lot of female writers also. Till then, women were not coming up into public. Even though they were writing with their I mean, they were hiding their personality, real gender, and writing in the name of a male personality. And only after the 19th century, we had lot of female writers, lot of contributions from female activists, ideologists, and theorists who spoke for equality of women in the society. And the first spell of feminism started in the end of 19th century, where it was for the suffrage, right to vote, and they were very successful in that. It is all possible. We are studying today, we are independent today. For all these things, only these activists are behind. Their struggle, their strife against the patriarchal society is the main reason for what we are today. And this feministic ideology continued till 1960 with French feminism, with feminists from America, from all European nations, writings by them, lot of protest by these women writers, and common women themselves brought us into this kind of scenario that we are into today. And among them, Simone de Beauvoir from France is a very important feminist who, for the first time, spoke about the patriarchal society, how women is trained to become a woman, how it is instilled into her mind, how a woman should behave, what are the conventional things that a woman should follow. So her strong protest was against this patriarchal construct, and she recommended that it should be broken. That is the only solution to have a gender equal society, towards a gender neutral society. And because of all these women writers and ideologists only, today we have a gender neutral approach to everything. We have even recently we had news like the Japan Airlines no longer has announcements like ladies and gentlemen. They wanted to break this gender difference, so now they are announcing as only as dear all, good morning, dear everyone, good morning. And in Bombay also they have a gender neutral signal system. So all these things are new uh, to the field of. All these things are new advancement in women emancipation, and you will be studying about the contributors behind all these advancement, which has been possible for women today. And while reading feministic ideologies, we will also be studying about queer theory, the Queer means strange, the irregular, not so commonly seen people with strange regularities. Uh, about lesbians, we will be studying about gay, we will be studying about bisexual, transgenders, what kind of life they lead, how do they express in their literary works. Through these literary works written by these people, we will be more enlightened to become aware of these people, how they should also be given space in the society, how they also deserve to be in this society. And this is what we will be studying in these theories. As you study all these things, as I told you, the total perception of life, approach to life changes. That is why a literature person is always different from the a person belonging to other discipline. And moreover, literature does not confine itself only to literary specific literary aspects. It also includes history, religion, philosophy, even science and prose forms. It includes mythology, theology. So while reading literature, you become a complete person reading about everything in the world. And after this, we will also have a glimpse of history of English language, how English emerged as a, how it started from its Anglo-Saxon lineage, and we will also be studying about its background from Indo-European languages and Greek and Latin influences in English language, and later we will also uh, probe into the reasons how this. Language of a small nation has become the language of the entire world today. What are the political reasons behind it? How the writers also parallelly have contributed to the emancipation of English language. So all these details will be covered in this paper. Along with it, we will also studying linguistics, in which we will be studying about how each sound is produced through the organs of speech in our system. Uh, what are the spellings of sounds? Usually, we read the spellings of words. In phonetics, we will be studying the science behind the spelling behind those sounds, which would make us pronounce words easily, better, without any mistakes. And after this, we will also be studying post-colonial literature, a branch of English literature which is the effect of colonialism by British power. And post-colonial literature refers to the literary works written by writers from the colonized countries all over the world. It is also called literature of Commonwealth countries, literature of the third world. And in this also we have a lot of writers from Africa, Australia, Asia. The contributions from all these colonies and writers from them we will be studying in this paper. And diasporic literature is also a recent one. And by diasporic we mean basically diasporic means to be scattered. Initially this term was used for involuntary migration of people to various places away from their native land. But today it is used mainly for those who are forced to go away from their native land due to various reasons, various political reasons. Uh, it can also be their economic need. So due to these kinds war, most importantly, how they miss their native land, how they are uprooted from their native culture, land, and staying in a foreign land as a secondary citizen. What is their feeling? How do they express it in their writings? All these things we will be studying in this topic. And after this we also have indigenous writings, writings of the native people, the marginalized. This was possible greatly because of translation. Even a regional work, as it gets translated, gets a wide reading all over the world. And today marginal literature, ethnic writing, Dalit literature, as all have all become very prominent in the field of English literature because of these transnational effects that are happening in the modern and postmodern world. And whatever I have told you now is only a small part of English literature. Other than that, you have lot of topics, lot of writers to cover with, and we also have basic advanced English grammar to remind you about whatever you have studied in your schooling, so that your LSRW skills become efficient, that you don't make any mistake in your spoken and written language. And it will also train you to write in a creative manner, which will help you to go for academic writing. And the program will also introduce to paper of journalism, in which you will learn about the field of journalism, how they work, the technical aspects of it. So that it covers everything. You will be studying from the you will be studying your about English society, and you will also study about the language and its basic grammar and everything. And after reading all this, we also have literature for children. Literature for children, or literary works which are written by writers, which are meant for children, which can be easily read, which contains picture stories, fables, moral stories. And these literary works are divided majorly into two, uh, in terms of genre, or in terms of the intended age of the reader. So you will be doing a lot of works on this, and you will evaluate them as a work for children. You will do Alice in Wonderland, Harry Potter, and so many other stories of Panchatantra. So you will have a happy time reading all these stories, and reading it as literature student, not just reading it like children or a common reader. You will evaluate from your own perspective that you have gathered from your learning for the past 4 5 semesters. And after this, we have a separate genre today: literary criticism and theory, a postmodern effect. We have ancient criticism and modern and contemporary criticism. In ancient criticism, we start with Aristotle and Plato, what they have said about a work of art, how it should be evaluated, what are the credits of how an author is given space, or where he stands in his age, all kinds of ideologies that we get from these legendary critics. And as we move on to modernism, we also read about new critics to start with. And then we also have critical writings by Dryden, Poe, Matthew Arnold, and contemporary criticism, which involves structuralism, post-structuralism, feminism, post-colonial writing. It will cover everything, whatever has been written and how it has to be evaluated, introducing new ideologies, theories, which will be really enlightening to you. And these are only introduction that you will be studying in UG courses. As you do your PG course, you will know more about the things in the field of literary criticism and theory. And after this, we also have a separate paper, Shakespeare, the undisputed king of English drama. Here also, once again, you will see all the things that you studied in your first semester social history, and how the Elizabethan theatre was functioning, how was it, how the people were made to sit, what kind of audience they were, what kind of drama Shakespeare was writing. And he has written altogether 39 plays. What are they? They are tragedies, romantic comedies. We also come to know the details, like even the women characters were played by boys at that time. We study the works, women characters by William Shakespeare. We read tragedies like Othello, Macbeth, Romeo Juliet. So all these works will give you a lot of insights into English literature, and whatever I have told you now is only to do with British literature, apart from very few things in post-colonial literature and other literature by non-British writers. And after this, we also have lot of contributions from non-British writers, because by this time, over the centuries, English has spread worldwide, and English has become a global language today. And it is only because of the language's modesty, its flexibility, that wherever it goes, it adopts the native culture, native people, language, and it adopts the words from the vernacular also, which makes it survive over the years from a very small country. And that's all these details we will be studying. And through this emancipation of this English language, we have lot of contributions from writers out of Britain. And from non-British writers also, as I told you, we have countless writings, different ideologies, different contributions, making it always lively and pleasant to read English literature. And to talk about non-British roots and contributions of writers, I leave the session to Madam Dr. Maria Preeti, who will be elaborating on non-British contribution to English literature. Thank you, girls. I hope all of you would have had a, at least a small glimpse of whatever you're going to study. And I hope you will enjoy studying BA English Literature. And after taking this course, you will definitely would have developed yourself to be a very different personality, a very matured human being who believe in an egalitarian society. Thank you very much, girls.
Thank you, Madam, for giving an overview of British literature and literary periods in detail from Geoffrey Chaucer to modern literature in learning literature with a thorough knowledge. The resource person of session 2 is Madam Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, Head of the Department of English, Queen Mary's College, who is highly resourceful, dynamic, and innovative in her academic endeavors. Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan is an Associate Professor of English at Queen Mary's College, Chennai. Her doctoral research was on the life writings of Australian Aboriginal, Indian, Dalit, and Adivasi women with a focus on their empowerment. Her research proposal for her doctoral research secured for her the Endeavour Award for the year 2006, sponsored by Department of Education, Science and Training, Government of Australia. She received this award from the then Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. John Howard, on his visit to India. Under the aegis of the award, she was a visiting scholar at the School English, Media and Performance Studies, UNSW, Sydney, till October 2007. She received an Australia Indian Council Fellowship in 2008 as well. She has traveled widely in Australia and Europe in relation to her academic work and has publications in reputed international journals. Her most recent academic publication is a collection of papers under the title Multiculturalism and the Social Fabric in Australia, America, and India, Emerald Publishers. She is also a creative writer. A few of her poems have been published in Of Indian Origin, Writings from Australia, edited by Paul Sherrod and Meta Padmanabhan, Orient Black Swan, in 2018. She is also visiting professor at the Austrian Research Center for Transcultural Studies, Vienna, and collaborating with this center on research project titled Ethnicity and Hegemony. Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan had her undergraduate education in Christian Women's College, and postgraduate studies from Stella Maris College. She was selected through Teachers Recruitment Board, Government of Tamil Nadu in 1998 and has been in the collegiate service since then. After serving in Vellore district for a few years, she has served for most of her career in Queen Mary's College. Apart from her interest in literature, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan is a passionate educationist. She was on deputation to the Tamil Nadu State Council for Higher Education, TANSPI, from 2015 to 2016, where she conducted many faculty development workshops. She was also a member of the team which prepared the state plan for Rashtriya Uchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, submitted to the Ministry of Human Resource Development, MHRD, in 2014. She has also worked in preparing teaching learning materials for SCERT, State Council for Education Research and Training. She is the editor of the state sponsored book, The World in Your Stride, a course on communication development, which is a bridge course for new entrants to arts and science colleges. Now, I request Madam Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan to take over the session titled The Non-British Part of the BA English Program.
Thank you, Raksha, and heartfelt thanks to Mrs. Kartika for doing such an exhaustive presentation. I'm truly impressed. So first of all, my dear students, I would like to focus on the term overview. What do we mean by overview? It's like a bird flying over. So if you are a bird flying over the city of Chennai, similarly, if you're a bird flying over the whole of literature, British English literature, what can you see? So that is the kind of view that we are giving to you today. And Madam made it clear that I will be looking at the non-British side of education, of English education. Now, let me tell you, first of all, that we have this kind of British oriented syllabus because we were colonized. We got our independence in 1947. And I just like to show you two people who have influenced our British oriented education. So one is, am I sharing the screen? No. No. Just a moment, just a minute. I'll share the screen. One is Macaulay. Okay. So I just quickly picked it up from the net. This is Macaulay. And he wrote the infamous rather, Minutes on Education in India. And then I'll show you the other person. He is Trevelyan. Okay. This originally the social history of England was written by G.M. Trevelyan. So can you see this image of Trevelyan? Yes? Okay, this is Trevelyan, and he is the person who wrote the social history of England. Now, I have to tell you something very interesting. You know, family relationships also affect the destinies of countries. Trevelyan and Macaulay were brothers-in-law. So one wrote social history of England, the other wrote the minutes on education in India. Okay, and this Macaulay, he said that he has to train people who are British in thinking but Indian in complexion. Okay, British in thinking and Indian in complexion. And that is the root, that is the source of our British literature oriented education. And that is why Trevelyan and Macaulay got together and gave us this very fine syllabus. Okay, and what has happened to us? Our minds are not decolonized. Okay, 73 years after independence, we have managed to get rid of 50% of that syllabus. All right, And still, we study social history of England. And I must congratulate you, wonderful, brilliant first year students. One of you asked Karthika, Madam, a very pertinent question. Madam, why are we studying social history of England? Are we in a history program or are we in a literature program? I appreciate your curiosity. So this is how we get to read so much of British literature, and our sensibilities, our way of thinking has been conditioned. So both Trevelyan and Macaulay, and there's another person called Woods, there's a famous Woods Dispatch, all these minds work together to see that we learn Milton, Shakespeare, Wordsworth, that we appreciate daffodils that we have not seen. Now we can see them through Google, but there were people who never knew how a daffodil looked, but they were so very eloquent about the poem Daffodils. They did not know how the lake districts looked in England, but they waxed eloquent about Wordsworth's nature poems. So that is how we have so much of a British input in our literature. Now, let me come to sharing what I have prepared on the non British aspect of our syllabus. Um, yeah, here we are. So the non-British components are Indian writing in English. Madam has spoken to you about literature for children, creative writing, literary criticism theory, gender studies, American literature. Now, American literature is also English literature, and you must know that America was basically founded by people who left England for a better life in America. Some of them went for religious freedom, some of them went to make a fortune. And you must remember that England is a very small island, and that accounts for why they branched out, why they had this maritime prowess. Maritime prowess, we mean this ability to navigate on ships. Yeah? So here you have the 13 colonies of America. And these colonies were formed in 1776. Um, so the colonies, as you can see, are Virginia. Okay, you can see it on the map. So Virginia was founded by John Smith of the London Company. So here he was an entrepreneur, he was doing business. And then New York was a Dutch colony. So people came from the Netherlands and settled in this place. New Hampshire was first purchased by a person named John Mason and then John Wheelwright. Massachusetts, this is important. So, Massachusetts is the place to which these people who were seeking religious freedom, see, the Puritans in England wanted freedom to worship, and they sailed on a ship called the Mayflower and they landed in Massachusetts. So, Rhode Island again is a place which was selected for them to pursue their type of Protestant faith. So, like this, there was some reason for people selecting the place on which they settled. Interestingly, look at Georgia. Georgia was founded by James Oglethorpe as a settlement for debtors. So people who were in debt. In England, the prisons were full. Okay, if you read Charles Dickens novels, you'll come across the concept of debtors' prison. You know, people they have small debts. They borrow some money, but the law was very strict. They were put into prison. So and like this only people also were transported to Australia for petty crimes. So America, I just want to emphasize, was founded originally by 13 colonies. These were people who did not want to live in England. Okay, so obviously these people wrote literature in English. But America still came under Britain. So the next important thing in American history is the American War of Independence. They separated from the British. and you see the different flags. So there is, so they still have retained the blue and the red, but the stripes that you see represent the 13 colonies of America. Uh, yes. So this happened on June 14th, 1777. But the America that we see today is a multicultural America. So in the early 60s and 70s, the same people whom you see on the screen, Chinese, Irish, Italian, but at that point of time, the American society was supposed to be a melting pot. So when you look at this image of this melting pot, can you see what is Chinese in that? What is Irish? No, it is all like one big soup. So they were expected to merge. So when you read American literature, you'll come across so many stories of people having European names. A person might have an Italian name, but he comes to America and takes a name like John, or if his name is uh, written as Jean, he changes it to John in America. So Russian names also, or a Chinese, an Italian name like Luca. Luca would be Luke, so he changes it to Luke in America. So they had to discard their cultural identities. But much later, after the 80s, 90s, and towards the 21st century, this concept of American society as a salad bowl came. And in a salad bowl, you are able to identify. So when you have a salad, you can identify the cucumber, you can identify the tomatoes, you can identify each thing, okay, the onions. And here they were encouraged. It just shows a shift in policy. They were encouraged to maintain their respective cultural identities. Now, Madam Kartika has given you a small input on post-colonial literatures. So, okay, and she also told you about the American identities. So she used the word indigenous. Now they also call them the First Nations people. And you know that Christopher Columbus is supposed to be the person who discovered America, but when he landed there, definitely he met the original inhabitants of that place, and he was planning to come to India, but he reached America and he called them Red Indians. So these people are now very dignifiedly, they have an identity as First Nations. So these American colonies, these 13 colonies, were inhabited by people from Britain and Europe. And you also have the African American people who came as slaves. And America, as you know, is a vast continent. So any society, whether America or Australia, when they want to build their society, they adopt a policy of migration. They adopt a policy of migration. So initially, in their policy of migration, they welcomed people from Europe. Obviously, they wanted people with blonde hair, blue eyes. And then later on, they opened up to people from the southern side of America, which would be the Mexicans, the Spanish, and the people of those ethnicities, of those cultures, they came in. Japanese came in, Chinese came in. So there were different waves of migration, which is very interesting to study. Um, Kartika Madam also mentioned the shift from Commonwealth to post colonial. So you must remember that in Indian history, Prime Minister Nehru had an important part to play in the future identity of our country. So Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru said that even after independence, India should belong to the Commonwealth of British nations. So the Commonwealth was created, when they were ruling, when they had empires. So Africa, India, then New Zealand, Australia, all these countries are Commonwealth countries. They are countries which were under British rule. So even after independence, we continued to belong to the Commonwealth, and we still belong. Interestingly, when I studied BA literature and MA literature, whatever we call post-colonial literature now was called Commonwealth literature. So see, when you give a name, there is a significance to it. Do you remember in early times, people who had a disability, they were called handicapped. But today we say physically challenged. So when you change the name, when the nomenclature is changed, it means there is a change in identity. There's an ideological shift, okay, the way of perceiving things. So here there's a shift from Commonwealth to post colonial. And this is where the empowerment comes from, this shift from Commonwealth to post colonial. As I said, our learning, our education was colonized, our minds were colonized, and the whole system was colonized. Even our scholarship was colonized. We wrote, even now we have a journal called Journal of Commonwealth Literature, right? So now we have to make this shift in our minds. This shift has been made in studies from Commonwealth to post-colonial, and there's a very interesting article on that. So, and then now, see, earlier these Commonwealth literatures, they were described as literature from the colonies. It's so patronizing, all right? You know, there are people who refer to people who work in their homes, they call them my servant, all right? We shouldn't use terms like that. So in the same way, when you say literature from the colonies, it immediately you see an imperial center in your mind, London, the imperial center, and that center, you know, presiding over all these little inferior nations, and the literature from them is served up on a platter to Great Britain. But now there's a ideological shift. So there is a famous book by Bill Ashcroft titled The Empire Writes Back. So how powerful that is. Oh, we are writing back. We are talking back. We are not going to be called Commonwealth people, or we are not going to be called people from the colonies, but we are writing back. So Gauri Vishwanathan says that all this literature that came from the colonies was a mask of conquest. You know, I happened to see reception in which the Queen was presented people from the Commonwealth nations. So each of them has to come in their native dress. So Indian in a sari, Indian woman in a sari, Indian man in a sharwani, and then an African person, African leader in his native dress. And it's like one colorful pageantry, and the Queen meets all of them. All right. So when we serve our literatures to the colonizer, okay, as if we are serving a different dishes at a banquet, what literature we give, even though it is written in of our Indian experience or our African experience, it only goes to show they have colonized us and we are giving. So beautifully, you know, this writer, uh, Edward Obi, I think his name is, says, um, Macaulay wanted people Indian in blood and color, but English in taste. So this is like we're having black skin, white masks. And also we are mimicking them, we are imitating them. And we are, another person says it's like the apple which is red outside and white inside. So how very graphic this description is. So when your mind is colonized, you are, your skin may be black, but your mind is colonized. It's like the apple which is red outside and white inside. So another thing that we have to realize is we are now, it's not only English literature, one wonderful English literature, but we have English literatures. We live in a dispensation, in a period of literatures. How nice is that? So this same writer, Edward Acko, says that so many of the writings in these countries, they are not even written in English, but they are called post-colonial, they are called Commonwealth literature. How can they be called Commonwealth literature? They're not even written in English. All right. So in that case, he says, shouldn't something written in Hindi or Maori or Zulu or Sanskrit be called Sanskrit or Zulu or Yoruba? Why should it be called Commonwealth? So here you see the different identities, the multiple identities, Sanskrit, Igbo, Yoruba, Hindi, Kosa. So now all these identities are getting recognition. They are not covered with a blanket, put one blanket and cover it and say, this is Commonwealth literature. No, it has its distinct identity as Igbo, Yoruba. These are African, Sanskrit, Hindi, Kosa, like that. So now coming to Indian literature, the Indian literature that was written maybe before independence and many years after independence was called twice born fiction. It was called twice born fiction, and all these writers are called Indo-Anglian writers. That means they are Anglophiles, or they have some kind of fascination for English and British culture. At the same time, they want to express the Indian experience. And this older generation of people who actually who were very happy with the independence of India, they felt that they were so colonized, like the apple red outside and white inside. People like R.K. Narayan and all these people said, we are a generation of people who think in English. Because we had an English education, we think in English. Now, that kind of fallout is there even today. There are so many people who want to go to English medium school because once they come to a college, go to a college like MCC or WCC, everybody speaks English. So my child should be in an English medium school so that my child thinks in English and speaks in English and writes in English. So still that colonial thinking is there in us, isn't it? Um, anyhow, that's just on the sidelines. But this twice born fiction, there are people who think in English and write in English. And so you have the older generation and the younger generation. You have Sashi Tharoor, you have Amitav Ghosh, you have Salman Rushdie. These are the Indo-Anglian writers. Then, when I was a student, we had Indian writing in translation. Today, there is a debate whether to call it Indian writing in translation or to call it Indian literature. So, Indian literature in that case may be only those things which are not translated. So, this debate is going on. So, when you say it is Indian literature and translation, again you say it is in English. It is in English. We are giving that importance to English. So, there is one Native American writer. He writes in English, and then in between he writes in Cree, his own language, and he continues writing in English. And he doesn't translate what he has written in Cree. He doesn't translate. Now, what he's trying to say by that is, you, I know English, you don't know my language. If you don't know, you don't know. All right. So that is how he is getting recognition for his language and his identity. So as you see now, literature is not in this post-colonial, post-independence phase of world history. It's a lot about identities, and identity, it's about multiple identities. So even in Indian literature, you have Dalit literature, you have Adivasi literature, right? It's about identities. So this is an article I like very much, and the senior students and staff would appreciate this quote. So this writer Ravindran says that we have so many writers. We have Sadat Hussain Manto, we have Mahashweta Devi, we have Gopinath Mohanty, we have Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, and these people are from different parts of India. We have U.R. Anantamurthy from Karnataka, and such a plethora of people. And if you have to say this is all Indian literature, all right. But there's one thing that Ravindran says in this last line: these writers dwell in different Indias. These writers dwell in different Indias. Even in Chennai city, we live in we live in different Indias. Some of us live in big houses. Some people live in ghettos. Some There are some people who live on the pavement. There are there's a they live in different worlds, isn't it? We may be walking on the same ground, but we live in different worlds because of our socio-economic situations. So writers come from different Indias. What a beautiful idea. We are in one India, but our experiences are from different Indias. And with that, I just want to reinforce that non-British aspects of literature have to be celebrated because they are about difference, about how people are different. You saw the salad bowl where your difference is shown, right? So like that, our differences are highlighted and we can have our identities. So Madam told you about literature for children, feminist literature. There's green literature. Our Sumati Madam is an expert in this, that is related to nature. All right. It's called eco literature also. And then I also want to say that, the line between studies and literature is slowly blurring. So we have green studies, gender studies. And in gender studies, you will study literature and you will study some things that are not actually, poems or novels or things like that. They may be essays. So there are people who are not literature students, but they study novels to understand that social context. There are people who are literature people, but they don't study literature, but they study other non-literary books. So now these lines are blurring. In your syllabus, you have ELT, that is English language teaching and journalism. So these are basically job related skills and vocation, right? And Madam has also told you about literary theory and criticism. I want to add just one point about literary theory and criticism. So many students are scared of literary theory. All right. Basically, literary theory and criticism, these tell you about theories of reading, writing, and worldviews. Let me explain that to you. If you take Dryden's Pope's essays, they will be theories of writing. You have to write a poem like this, otherwise it's not a poem. All right. Arnold's study of poetry, and he says that this, if it is written like this, only it is a work of value. Then T.S. Eliot's tradition and the individual talent. So like this, we have essays which tell us what is a good writing. We have essays which tell us how to read, and there are essays which talk about worldviews. So there are different worldviews. Uh, we won't go into that. Worldviews come from what is happening in the world. So, for example, World War II shook the world, isn't it? World War II, there was so much loss of life. So, after World War II only, literature changed a lot. Literary theory also changed a lot, and people stopped. They questioned the existence of God. So, the theories also changed according to that. So, uh, there's another word called literary appreciation or criticism, commentary. And so basically, theory is about understanding how the world, WORLD, comes into the word, WORD, then the word goes into the world. This is a very beautiful thought, students. With your words, you can shape the world. The world, dunya, ulagam, shapes the word. All right. So this you will understand by and by. There may be things that you may not have understood, but this lecture is being recorded and you can go back to it and listen again and again, and you will understand so many things. So basically, if we want to put everything in a nutshell, non-British literature is a lot about identity, cultural identity. And this cultural identity comes from understanding and asserting difference. If I say I am Tamil, I'm clearly saying I'm not Hindi, right? If I say I am black, I'm clearly telling you I'm not white. So, cultural identity, and which is highlighted through difference. And it's also about issues. I told you about green literature. We saw feminist literature. So feminist would have to do with women's issues. Green literature has to do with with nature, right? So if you remember that non-British literature is basically related to identity, to difference, to issues, and as students of literature, if we sensitize ourselves, no, if we feel I have to respect another person's identity, I have to respect that person's difference from me. So, um, when we think in that way and we think about social issues, we think about gender issues, we think about transsexual people, or we think about transgender people, then we are acquainting our minds with these issues and differences and identities. So, now what is the special thing about this non British literature? We are hearing the voices of these people. They are writing. Okay, there's a transgender lady who has written her life story. She was a boy, Saravanan. Then she became because she's a transgender and she's actually a female, she took the name Vidya. So she wrote, I am Vidya. All right. There are Aboriginal people, the black people of Australia. So they are writing their life stories. So before colonization, when we were colonized, all these voices were not heard. So let us be happy that we are no longer, confined to British literature, but so many doors and avenues have opened up and we can hear many voices. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for making the session interesting and providing a glimpse on the non-British components of BA English literature, which will be of a great use to our students. Now the session is open for questions and clarifications. Questions are invited from students. Ma'am? Students can come out with questions. Yes, ma'am?
Even staff can ask anything.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
So looks like Kartika and I have bulldozed everybody.
I think nobody is coming.
Yes, you can proceed,
Yes.
madam, with the vote of
Yeah. Now I request Madam Dr. N. Balambige, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all my friends and my dear students. I take great privilege in proposing this vote of thanks. I would like to begin with a quote of Robert Frost. I am not a teacher, but an awakener, said Robert Frost. True, the faculty of the Department of English really has aimed at awakening this literary spirit in the minds of the students. The event, making the most of the BA English program, has its focus in the grooming of the students through literature, as to how literature leaves an indelible impact in the minds of the readers. The real aim of this orientation program was to instill and kindle a literary spirit and interest and involvement in literature. And I'm sure this orientation program organized by the Department of English would be really very, very successful in creating this interest. At the outset, now let me thank our respected Principal Madam for providing a wonderful opportunity to organize this great event, making the most of the BA English program. Thank you, Madam. My sincere thanks and sense of appreciation goes to our respected head of the department, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, for planting this seed of the orientation program, which when we never thought about such a thing, we usually have our freshers day, but she had a great intellectual seed, which has come out as a wonderful program now. Thank you, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan. Um, at this juncture, I would like to acknowledge and register the great involvement and dedication and the commitment she has shown in making and arranging this program in a very successful way. And she has been as a resource person of this day. Um, has her graphic, I mean, she was talking about post-colonial literature, post-colonial writings, but the way she launched from American literature, taking to the various countries which were under the shackles of colonization, and how the different countries, I mean, she used a very critical terms like how the difference is there in the writings of this post-colonial writers, unlike the other writers, and how the writing expresses the identity crisis and everything she presented in a very beautiful and a very wonderful way. Thank you, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan. And now I would like to profoundly thank the organizing secretary, Dr. Raksha, for her meticulous organization of this great event. And each and everything, right from the beginning, from the day one, and today is the second day, the way she has organized things was really great, Raksha. Thank you so much, Raksha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. My sincere thanks are due to Professor Kartika, who made a exhaustive presentation on the social history of England. Because my topic, this year I'm dealing with social history of England. So I was really interested in listening to, how she started with the ancient times, the old English, till the modern English, with the various presentation, PowerPoint, everything. And she has given a real insight as to how language, literature, and society are interlinked, which is very important to appreciate a particular work of art. Kartika, I'm very sure your presentation on the social history of England would promote and improve the literary scholarship of our students. They will, I think I can find a real difference after this program when I take social history of England. Thank you so much, Kartika. And my sincere thanks are due to my dear students who are the building blocks of this event. I'm sure you would all be benefited out of this event, this orientation program. As Dr. Maria Preeti ma'am said, head of the department, she said, how word and world are interlinked. I'm sure you would gain a lot from the words of literature to connect and to relate with the world we live in and benefit out of it. And thank you, all of you. And my wishes to the two other resource persons, Sandhya and Urmila also. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you, Bala madam. Thank you, Raksha.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, it's formally over. So
Okay,
thanks to all of you. I can see Vinita there. I can see all your names, Angeline, and Thank you all. Thank you, dear Kartika. It was splendid. And thank you so much. So, see you later.
Yes, thank you.